Welcome to the February first quarter military outreach group meeting presented by Bank of America. I'm Scott Fisher. I'm going to be hosting the meeting today. We do have a lot of new folks participating in today's call, so a special shout out to those people, and thanks for joining us. To get things kicked off, I would like to start off like we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. You should see it on the screen. Just start after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I think to get things started off, we'll start with the update from Washington, D.C. from Cassidy and Associates. Suzanne?
Good afternoon, everybody. I know everybody loves hearing what's going on in Washington. We've definitely had more dramatic conversations than the ones today, but I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to run through a quick presentation that we put together. There's a lot of information in these slides.
You tell me.
And
This is
so,
where I'm thinking about setting Kenneth up at. Right here.
I'm going to run through these slides real quick, and then I'm sure Susan will make them available to send out after the screen after the event. And for those who don't know, I'm with Cassidy and Associates. We've worked in partnership with the Chamber since 2003 on protecting and enhancing your military value, making sure that the base is the community stays welcoming to military families and soldiers, and making sure that the Chamber community and the business community in general does what it can to make Columbia a military-friendly destination with compatible growth and support for our military families. So I'm going to run through this quick presentation. Thank you for having me this afternoon. Talk a little bit about the 117th Congress, what the Biden administration is looking like in the DoD space, and I'm going to touch on base realignment and closure, which is how this all got started, and talk a little bit about what BRAC means today. So in general, for everybody's knowledge, President Biden's approach to defense spending, I can't see my own screen, so there we go. But budget austerity, because of what's gone on in the coronavirus crisis, was slated to plague whoever won the election this year. The defense budget is entering a period of literal no growth, even before the coronavirus pandemic began, despite small bumps each year. DoD under President Biden will continue to have a large role in coronavirus response. I'm sure that our friends at the base can speak to that, and maybe saved from budget cuts that could affect other agencies. In general, President Biden is seen as not a disruptor president. His family has served in the military. His wife, the First Lady's policy that she's adopted is going to be supporting military families. So I think we're going to see a very military-friendly Biden administration. But the reality lies in the Pentagon, as it does against many other agencies, if and when there's going to be a reining in of spending. Military installations, military construction, facilities restoration and sustainment are often seen as easier places to cut than large obligated weapons programs, benefits, pay, etc. We expect the Biden administration will prioritize innovation and non-military investments, continue a strong drumbeat on the threats of China and Russia to the United States national security, which is consistent with the national defense strategy. We also think that the Biden administration will likely review President Trump's proposed troop movements out of Europe, including most notably AFRICOM. And we've heard in the recent weeks, there's also going to be an Inspector General investigation into the basing of Space Command, which happened in the last few weeks of the Trump administration. New DoD leadership, General Austin was confirmed by the Senate a couple days after Inauguration Day. He's the first African-American Secretary of Defense. The Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks, she is well known in the defense policy world. And I'm going to just highlight that last bullet. She is well known as speaking, and for those who have attended Association Defense Communities or read our reports back on it, she often sits on the panel of those who advocate for BRAC as a mechanism to right size the defense footprint. And so that's something we want to keep an eye on, and we'll talk about a little bit later. There are new defense leaders in the 117th Congress. There's been a lot of changes. This is kind of inside baseball, but we'll send around. Most notably, there's a new defense appropriations chairwoman in the House, Betty McCollum from Minnesota, and Chairman in the Senate, Senator John Tester from Montana. He's made some news in the last few days speaking about his interest in reining in long-term, what he believes are obsolete weapon systems. So we'll keep an eye on that as we start to walk through the budget process. There's also a new ranking member and chairman of the MILCON VA Appropriations Subcommittee in the Senate, Chairman Martin Heinrich from New Mexico is a first-time appropriator, and John Boozman from Arkansas is also a new ranking member. So what about BRAC? We've talked about this a lot as a group. When is the next BRAC? When's it going to happen? How is it going to happen? How's it triggered? We can talk through the calendar and schedule more as it starts to look like more of a reality. But we have seen in defense authorization bills in the last few years, congressional leaders have set up a series of trigger activities, including force structure studies, force structure reviews, and others that give DoD the flexibility to make movements outside of the specter of congressional politics. The fact remains true that all the services have significant excess capacity and maintain facilities that are either already obsolete or in severe disrepair. I believe Fort Jackson, my opinion is an anomaly to this. The DoD has made over $1 billion in investment in the fort in the last 15 years. I bet the number is even higher than that. I'd love to hear a number from our base friends. But maintaining obsolete facilities takes budget resources away from other places. And the most recent excess capacity study found there was 22% excess capacity. In the Midlands, we know that you don't have to have a BRAC to make moves happen. For those of you who are around in 2017, we were subject to the Army Supplemental Programmatic Assessment process. Could have lost 3,100 jobs, I believe, at the end. When it all played out, we lost a couple of hundred jobs, but that was because the community binded together to help support the base. If Congress doesn't ultimately authorize a BRAC round in the 117th Congress, as I said, DoD has existing authorities they can use to hollow out or shadow BRAC existing defense infrastructure, which makes everybody an equal loser all around. So do I think Congress is going to authorize a BRAC? I don't like to be Chicken Little, but I think that there are some political things that are coming into play. President Biden has previously stated he's supportive of a new BRAC round. The Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Jack Reed from Rhode Island has publicly said he supports BRAC. The Armed Services Committee Chair in the House, Adam Smith, has publicly stated he supports a BRAC. And in his confirmation hearing, Secretary Austin was asked about BRAC and said that he will work with his advisors to determine whether that's appropriate. Jim Inhofe, who was the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee in previous Congresses, is now in the minority. He's been one of the most outspoken opponents of BRAC. Some would say it's because he has 2 undergraduate pilot training bases in his state and could be subject to some closures going ahead. But you didn't hear it here unless you heard it on Facebook Live while you're watching me. How could a 2023 to 2027 BRAC be different? That's about where they would play out once you go through the authorization times. We are hearing from this administration a strong focus on climate change and resiliency and the threat it poses to military installations. I'm sure you've seen the news in South Carolina, and this is big news in Florida and the coastal area of Virginia. There are many Air Force bases that could be underwater should climate change continue to affect coastal regions. We're seeing an increased focus on green energy and energy resiliency, an enhanced focus on military value and on supporting military families, and then looking at how airframes affect future mission. So there's been a couple mechanisms put in place since the last BRAC. We've talked through these. I'm going to just let you read through these slides when they get rolled out. But DSIP, the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program, the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program, and the Energy Resilience and Conservation Investment Program, or ERSIP, are some mechanisms that have been put in place to enhance spending inside and outside of base gates to help support military mission and military families. So what do you do to prepare for a future BRAC? You probably can't read in the left-hand column. These were, Fort Jackson was a huge recipient in the authorization and appropriations bill last year, thanks to the hard work of our congressional delegation, on 2 cost-complete projects and then 1 unfunded requirement process. This chart's from the authorization side, but it's my understanding there was unspecified UFR unfunded requirement money that was included in the final omnibus appropriations bill. And from speaking with the Army, it's my understanding that the Trainee Barracks Complex 3 Phase 2 was included in that, as well as some of the cost to complete. And from speaking with our sources inside the Army, it appears we look good going into the fiscal year 22 budget for continued investment on the base, finishing up some projects. So we should once again have another fairly significant MILCON military construction project, which is a great news story for the base. So what do? Keep doing what we're doing at the chamber. Make sure that our partners with the chamber in the business community understand the value that Fort Jackson has to our economic impact in this region. Make sure leadership knows the new threat environment. Make sure we're continuing to keep an eye on the SWAT of our bases, both at Fort Jackson and our friends over at McIntyre. Protect our installation projects and priorities through completion of this legislative process, which our congressional delegation is doing a great job at. And there's additional, you can read through these, but do we look at an infrastructure bill? Do we look at the earmarking process? Do we continue to look at zoning and encroachment legislation to make sure that everything that we do as a community is singularly focused on not only keeping Fort Jackson strong, but giving them the ability to grow should we go into a future BRAC or a BRAC-like process. So that was probably over my 5 to 10 minutes. I went on the 10 minutes range, but I'm happy to answer questions now or at the end of all the presentations.
All right, since it doesn't seem like there's any questions for Suzanne, we'll move on to our congressional reports. If we can kick it off with Senator Graham's office.
Hey, how's everybody doing? It's good to see y'all again. Send you greetings from Senator Graham. Susan, you don't have to worry because you can have some of my time because there's not a whole lot to put out right now. So the senator's expecting the president's budget to drop sometime this summer, and then they can begin the process of working through appropriations for 2022. The senator is committed to maintaining a strong defense budget, but there may be some challenges as we're in the minority. And we'll have to see if the Biden administration may want to shift funding to other priorities. Some of our legacy programs may be at risk if we see a lower defense top line, and that's a concern. Other than that, all the senator's office since the pandemic has started have been doing constituent service continuously with a great uptick. And we are here to help everybody who needs it, whether it's federal and some state issues as well. But that's all I have at this time. Appreciate it.
All righty, thank you. Senator Scott's office.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Apologize, I can't join by video today. I am driving, but I will echo what William said. We as an office have seen an uptick in casework, and we are still continuing to assist constituents with any federal agency. So please reach out to us if you have questions. I did send an email to Susan in regards to some military and veterans things that the senator was working on. And I would just encourage you all to sign up for our newsletters to get those as well. But we're here to help if you need anything. So please reach out to me.
Well, thank you, Brianna. Any questions for Brianna? If not, I'll move on to Mr. Ward from Congressman Clyburn's office.
Do y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Good, good. Good afternoon to everyone. We don't have anything to report for this quarter.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Is Mr. Morris from Congressman Wilson's office.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm also having some internet issues and only able to join by phone. A couple things to report. As far as last year's NDAA goes, we ended up with 5 different bills that Congressman Wilson either introduced or co-led that were wrapped into that. He's very happy about that. It's got to be a record of some kind. Some things we're working on. This year's NDAA is the markup is going to be a little bit later than normal, probably in June or July. The president's budget won't be released, like William said, and possibly as late as May because of it being a new administration. There is a push right now between us and the rest of the delegation to have the F-35 based at McIntyre. Congressman Wilson led the House delegation's efforts to petition the Air Force. He wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Air Force and Among other things mentioned, the men and women of the 169th Fighter Wing are leaders in the SEED mission and uniquely capable of mating emerging doctrine to the new airframe. Something else we're working on this year is reducing barriers to military voting. We're working with DoD to permit deployed service members to vote in federal elections via an online portal. The last thing is nuclear. Sorry, I'm reading from some notes here. We were able to secure funding for pit production at the Savannah River site, which is key for our modernization in our nuclear triad. It's going to keep a lot of jobs in South Carolina in the Midlands. Apart from that, we're just happy to be here, and please let us know if there's anything we can do.
All right, thank you, Alex. So we'll move into the military organizations updates, and I think we'll start off with Fort Jackson.
Hey, Scott team, good afternoon. And, forgive me if I borrow a little bit of time from those that may not have provided information up front. But certainly want to thank the Military Affairs Committee, for your partnership and your continued support. We definitely feel it here on Fort Jackson, and we're thankful for everybody here in the community. Just want to provide a few highlights since our last meeting. With the help of our regional law enforcement, our transportation network partners, and local media providing coverage, we had a very successful victory block leave for our basic trainees. So we really appreciate the greater community effort as well as the USO volunteers for their tremendous support while ensuring these trainees had opportunity to spend the holidays with their families and friends. Also on 15 January, Brigadier General Beagle reduced Fort Jackson from HPCon Charlie to HPCon Bravo. This decision didn't change any protective measures as we retain the same Charlie posture, but all recreational services and food venues currently remain open at reduced capacities with protective measures in place. But Bravo did simply just allow us to open our DoDEA schools with the transition from the first semester to the second semester on the 27th of January. And so that was the primary impetus for that decision. Everything else remains the same. We began COVID vaccinations in January as led by Moncrief Army Health Clinic. Although we have some opting out, demand for the vaccine has exhausted all of our supplies as we receive them. We expect to continue that trend as we work to inoculate permanent party and retiree beneficiaries while building offensive momentum in the fight against COVID-19. Sir, moving to MilCon, I do have one update. Several have been tracking 2 MilCon projects where we realized above threshold reprogramming requests, ATRs, during the bid process, which escalated costs above the appropriated amounts and prevented our ability to award those contracts. Even though there were some dollars in the NDAA, they were not enough to cover those ATRs. So we've gone back to the well with USACE. One of the things that we're trying to do for BCT4 Phase 2 and the 120th Reception Battalion Complex Phase 1, which were affected by the ATRs, is we want to take the current dollars that we have in-house and that have been appropriated to us. And to prevent further project delays, we asked USACE to resolicit a restructured contract that included a base bid to construct the projects in partial with a bid option for the remainder of the project once we get those ATR dollars. So that allows us to keep and use the dollars that we have to start construction for the majority of the project. And then once they flush out the ATRs, we would be able to award the option and finish that work. And right now, those decisions are being made at the MCOM level, and TRADOC is also engaging with MCOM to try to shake those priorities loose for us. Sir, Ms. McPherson asked me to touch on, service contracts. Before I get into the how-to, one of the things that we're currently doing in terms of intergovernmental service agreements, we're discussing with the Public Works Department of the University of South Carolina. We established a recurring biweekly meeting to discuss potential IGSA candidates that'll benefit both Fort Jackson and USC by reducing service costs and gaining some efficiencies. So we look forward to the outcomes of those discussions. Regarding governmental contract opportunities that apply to the greater Columbia area, I would like to highlight opportunities for how entrepreneurs may pursue governmental contracts on military installations. And I'll provide this to Ms. McPherson in her notes so that she can push that out as well. But first, all contractors wishing to do business with the government must be registered in the System for Award Management, SAM, online site. SAM registration must be active in order to be eligible for contract awards, and contractors can register online at the www.sam.gov site. So where should an entrepreneur go to seek contract opportunities? The beta.sam.gov site contains a listing of those opportunities to bid for federal businesses over $25,000. These include pre-solicitation notices, solicitation notices, award notices, and sole source notices. A second contract opportunity for small businesses is to explore subcontracting opportunities. Subcontracting opportunities through the prime contracts is a very large secondary market. The Department of Defense maintains a directory of all of those large prime contractors at their Defense Business Acquisition website, so that small businesses can look through there and see what types of equities they may be able to engage on, find out who these primes are, and reach out and establish relationships with them. There's some other resources that are available to help small businesses get plugged in as well. There's the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, the PTACs, are located in most states and provide small businesses with information on how to do business with the government. Additionally, USACE there in the Charleston district, our servicing district for large MILCON projects, has a small business coordinator that may be useful to contractors just starting out to help give advice and coaching and how to gain footing and get a foot in the door. And again, I'll provide all this information to Ms. McPherson. And then, sir, while we're talking about that, I know that Susan mentioned the BRAC. So just a little bit about what we think that means for Fort Jackson. We think it's little to no impact for Fort Jackson, or potentially in addition, as TRADOC restructures and may see Fort Jackson as an opportunity to relocate headquarters structure here in terms of the CIMT. But that would be through a 2028 strategy that's currently being flushed out. And the reason I say, Fort Jackson is at little to no risk is based on our mission. 51% of all of the basic trainees coming into the Army come through Fort Jackson each year. That's more than any other Army basic training installation, and more than all three of them combined in comparison to Fort Jackson. We've been very strategic in our long-term planning, and we competed well for articulating our requirements in the facility infrastructure plan to MCOM, AMC, and Army just this last year. And we fared very well. We came out in the Army's top 7 installations for investment, primarily based on our mission. And so we competed well for MILCON, restoration, and modernization. We also compete well for demolition dollars. And so by competing well for demo dollars, Fort Jackson actually does not have that empty infrastructure that we're putting sustainment into. We have a couple of facilities that we've mothballed while we wait for sustainment dollars, but we don't dump money into facilities that don't have organizations in them. And quite the contrary, we struggled to hang on to enough swing space so that when we do have MILCON, we can move organizations around on Fort Jackson in order to be able to continue that construction. So we're in a really good place based on our mission and how we've competed, leveraging our long-term strategy. Sir, if I get into outreach, just like to highlight a few distinguished visitors to Fort Jackson. We hosted Governor McMaster and several state secretaries as they received District and Regional Corps of Engineer updates, and that included a site visit over at our Sims Dam project. Completion date for that's been pushed from January out to April, but it's coming along nicely. We've had weather and rain delays over the last couple of months. General Brito, Lieutenant General Brito, the Army G1, was here 17 to 19 February, providing leadership discussions and also working with the Soldier Support Institute to develop Army Human Resources training and doctrine strategy. Major General Stuart Risch, the Deputy Judge Advocate General, was here with our JAG Corps folks. And then we also had Lieutenant General Martin, the TRADOC DCG, and Brigadier General Stephen Iakovali, the 94th Division CG here on Fort Jackson as well. So regarding future outreach events, and I kind of want to hit on this because we're trying to open these opportunities back up post, during COVID. We're working, to safely get to yes for executing several of the events that we canceled last year due to COVID. We've developed a great level of competency to be able to operate in a COVID environment, and we've had success. And so we want to try to expand that back to bringing our partners back on to Fort Jackson. One of the things we're currently doing and working with Ms. McPherson on is our Garrison PO team is working to help develop a community town hall with General Beagle to help provide a more in-depth update on Fort Jackson to the Chamber and all of our regional leaders. So more information on that is forthcoming, and we'll be asking for questions up front to provide that to General Beagle so that we can better prepare him for that venue. So on 5 March, we are executing the Richland School District 2 Social Studies Project Outreach Tour with 8 faculty arriving for a Fort Jackson tour, museum tour, and a site visit to basic combat training. On 19 March, we've got the Newberry Museum's commemoration to the 369th Infantry Regiment, Harlem Hellfighters. On 30 March, we've got the Greenville Police Department Partnership for Youth Success signing ceremony. For 11 May, we're planning to hopefully execute the Leadership Columbia tour of 35 to 40 personnel here on Fort Jackson, Camp McCready, and McIntyre. We have a lot of planning to do in order to set conditions for final approval, but we're hoping to get to yes on that Leadership Columbia visit. On 21 May, we intend to execute the South Carolina Department of Education Military Honor Cord ceremony for our regional high school ROTC programs. We think we'll get to yes nicely with this program. By just busing them from the schools, bringing them to Hilton Field, giving them maneuver space, executing that ceremony and loading them up and moving them back out. So we're planning to get the yes on that event as well. And sir, as we finalize dates and activities, we'll certainly be pushing and providing that information through our PAO. Sir, before closing, I would like to throw in a couple of plugs and a shout out. First, the Fort Jackson Golf Club has resumed corporate golf tournaments under COVID conditions. So all of our businesses and corporations in the area that used to use our 36-hole course for those events, it's open for scheduling, and we appreciate any opportunities that take to leverage us. Second, a plug for the Digital Garrison app. As you know, although I know Ms. McPherson has already pushed information on it, we fielded the Fort Jackson app in 2019 to connect users to installation quality of life services and command information. MCOM has teamed up with AAFES and developed an enterprise solution, called the Digital Garrison. And so we're having to sunset the Fort Jackson app and convert to Digital Garrison. And so it's available on iOS or Android simply by going to the App Store or Google Play to download the app where you can create your account, select Fort Jackson or any other Army installation that you're interested in to be able to set that up. And we'll continue to push that information. And I would also be remiss, sir, one more thing. If we did not thank Dr. Baron Davis and Richland School District 2 for recognizing Mr. Fred Henley during Black History Month for the tremendous work he does to support the educational needs of military families in our regional schools here within Richland County. He's a tremendous valued leader for both Fort Jackson and Richland too. And so just a thank you to Dr. Davis for recognizing him. And sir, in closing, we've got several leaders changing out through the summer. Brigadier General Beagle was just announced today as the commanding general for 10th Mountain Division. And so he'll be leaving in early summer to take command of 10th Mountain. I'll be changing out this summer as well as a few other battalion commanders. But we look forward to working closely with you over the next few months while ensuring warm handovers that are needed with our replacements to continue to close ties. And so, sir, with that, that's all we have from Fort Jackson.
Hey, thank you, Colonel Hankins. I guess it's congratulations to General Beagle, going to be the commanding general of the 10th Mountain Division, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you. We'll be moving on to South Carolina National Guard, Colonel Bullwinkle.
It froze on me. I guess you're introducing me. I'm getting an opportunity to come back and visit this forum. It's been about a year since I've been briefing and moved on from the Service Member Family Care to the G3. But on behalf of General McCarty, who couldn't be with us today, he wanted me to portray to you what the South Carolina National Guard is doing today. Currently, we've got some units in the National Capital Region providing a shield over our capital, protecting our assets up there in the National Capital Region. We have aviation, engineering, and transportation assets on the Southwest Border Mission, and that mission is going to continue as far as we know through the end of their orders, and there hasn't been any change to that. We got a unit that's just starting to rotate out of Germany, and that's our 678th Air Defense Artillery Brigade headquarters. And we also have a contingency contracting team in Kuwait working on theirs. With that being said, over the past year, or actually 4 or 5 months, we sent a battalion plus infantry soldiers to protect the national capital during the inauguration and the changing of our commander-in-chief. Today, we are operating over 600 soldiers that are on day 348 of the COVID mission here in the state. It's probably it is the longest DISCA mission that we have in the history of the South Carolina National Guard. Again, we're on day 348. And with that, we're providing over 600 soldiers that are helping out DHEC, doing rural testing at 17 different sites. We have over 30 soldiers, helping 4 prisons, Kirkland, Goodman, Camille, and Trenton, screening their soldiers, screening their inmates for COVID symptoms and making sure that they're taken care of. We're helping the feeding the Carolinas Food Bank, but at 5 sites: Spartanburg, Florence, Greenville, Richland, Anderson. And that's scheduled through at least the end of March. We're doing a food distribution in Lawrence. We're assisting in Greenville Memorial Hospital Patient Transfer Center. We have 28 medics that are supporting hospital vaccine support. To date, your soldiers in the South Carolina National Guard have inoculated over 25,000 civilians at MUSC Chester, MUSC Lancaster, Greenville Memorial, Prisma Gamecock Park, Prisma Lawrence, Tidelands Georgetown, Tidelands Waccamaw, Kershaw, McLeod Sherall, McLeod Florence, and Prisma Mobile. In addition to that, we've inoculated over 2,100 of our own soldiers with our existing, and we utilize 90% of our vaccination that we have. We also have 10 sites where we're doing additional vaccination support with just general purpose soldiers and transportation assets. We also like to say that, we just fielded our 125th Engineer Company, which is a bridging company, just fielded Zodiac boats. And hopefully that'll scare off any kind of flood that we've had in the past 4 or 5 years. We've got Zodiac boats that can help us with some swiftwater rescue. So we're thinking that's kind of a good omen for everyone. We also competed, and we're receiving 2 combat engineer companies, one specifically for armor. So it'll work with armor personnel carriers, Bradleys and tanks. And we also competed for a combat engineer company, infantry. And we got that. We're one of the very few states that receive both an engineer armor and an engineer infantry company. The Army's getting away from contracting when it comes to feeding our soldiers. So in 2023, South Carolina will stand up a field feeding company. It's approximately about 150 soldiers, and all they do is they feed our soldiers when they go into an area. We can do it during disc missions, or we can do it overseas in a combat environment. Colonel Hankins gave me the idea to talk about MILCON, and it would be good for this forum. Currently, we're working on MILCON for an Aiken Tech Readiness Center at Aiken Tech. And we're also looking at the another Charleston Readiness Center on the Charleston Air Force Base. So that could play into our hands, supporting that BRAC if, again, we're looking at climate change and Charleston happens to be a consideration. We can also support that, saying that they're going to be housing some of South Carolina's National Guardsmen. With that being said, that's all I have, kind of a quick overview of what we're doing and what we've done over the past 4 or 5 months here in South Carolina National Guard.
All right, thank you, Colonel. We'll kick it on over to McIntyre.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Colonel Tim Dawson here. On behalf of Colonel Akshay Gandhi and 169 Fighter Wing, appreciate the opportunity to give an update today. Colonel Gandhi is tied up with Major General Franks, who is visiting the installation today. He is the 15th Air Force Commander at Shaw Air Force Base, responsible for all the combat and ISR assets and the Central Command area responsibility. So pretty significant visit, and it's got Colonel Gandhi tied up today. We continue to punch away at our priorities, readiness for our federal and our state missions. We're in the midst of both of those, protecting the force during the pandemic period, and then also continuing with our community and partner engagement and outreach. To Suzanne's point early on from the Washington update, we are spending a lot of time with our long-range planning, improving our strategic basing posture for the installation, ensuring our military value and the messaging is out there. We continue to modernize our infrastructure. We're looking for installation resiliency, and we have a pretty robust construction program going on at the moment. And then mission sustainment and partner engagement, we're spending a fair amount of time on that as well to improve that. Heavy muscle movements we got going on, F-35 basing. The next Air National Guard basing decision is expected this year, and we're pushing very hard. We believe the time is right for McIntyre and this next iteration of that. So everything associated with that tends to be a top priority. We are also getting ready to deploy folks over to Southwest Asia again in the coming months. And incidentally, we had several hundred people that just did pre-deployment training out at Nellis Air Force Base for a red flag pre-deployment exercise at the Nevada Test and Training Range out there, conducting joint all domain operations training in preparation for their upcoming deployment. And if I can put a boast out there, the 169th Maintenance Group, out of several thousand individuals and several hundred aircraft that were involved, our maintenance folks were cited as the top maintenance unit for that red flag exercise. That's a pretty significant event, so good for them. And that's the McIntyre standard. We can continue to support COVID response, critical staffing needs, and support around the state, as Colonel Bullwinkle already alluded to. A few small things we got upcoming. We're hosting a weekend Boy Scout event out here, the first weekend of May, I believe it is. And in the spirit of resilient military families, we have another Strong Bonds event out at Weston Lake and Fort Jackson with in April with a theme of 7 habits of highly successful military families. That's the theme of this upcoming one. So we spent some pretty good time trying to ensure our airmen and our families increasingly become a little more resilient and take care of business during those times. A couple of units conducting training under the Innovative Readiness Training Program. These tend to be associated. These are dual purpose types of training events that tend to be dual purpose and humanitarian disaster response related. We have our civil engineers going out to Mississippi in April in partnership with the Toughest Kids Foundation. And they're going to be assisting with constructing a camp for special needs kids and adults. It's a couple year effort, but we're going to be out there supporting that effort and may have a repeat visit. Additionally, our medical group, they are going out to Missouri in June for what is termed Operation Healthy Delta, and they're providing medical services to those in need in that area. And again, there's training benefit for us, and there's benefit to those respective communities, and that's a good innovative program that leverages those assets for those reasons. A little further out, later on this fall, we are, as a wing, we're planning a wing dining out that is going to commemorate the South Carolina Air National Guard's 75th anniversary. The first muster of the Air National Guard was on 9 December 1946. So late this year, that'll be the 75th anniversary. And at the same time, we'll also be memorializing the 20th anniversary of 9/11 as well as part of that function. COVID-related things that have been deferred that we had planned and will be rescheduled. Generally, McIntyre hosts a junior ROTC Top Gun drill meet with statewide high schools. That was scheduled for March. We're having to postpone that. We also host an annual STEM Day. That was going to be in April. We're going to have to defer that as well. Dates are still to be determined. And excuse me, on the operational side, something pretty significant for the Joint Force, but McIntyre is pretty proud to be a participant of this. But in April, McIntyre, on its closed runway, we're going to be hosting a Joint Capabilities Technology demonstration. This is an event sponsored by US Indo-PACOM, and the purpose of it is they are experimenting with new tactics, techniques, and procedures regarding air-base damage recovery. And the way we do business and fight our wars with the current national defense strategy against near peers has necessitated an update on how we recover from airfield attacks, expecting that we're not going to be able to block everything. Something may get through, but McIntyre was selected out of over 200 installations worldwide that was considered for this technology demonstration, and we're going to be hosting that in April, and there'll be some DV visit invites that will be sent out for that on a visitor day, on a date to be determined. But we'll get a name list for that, and we'll want the community to have a few representatives there as well. Besides that, I just want to put out another thank you for folks out there, the businesses, ESGR, USO, local businesses. Always thank you for supporting our Guard and supporting our military locally. It's no wonder we're a great American defense community, and we just enjoy being part of that. And can't thank you enough for the support that you give the military. And that's all I got for the Air National Guard update, subject to any questions, sir.
All right, thank you very much. We will look for South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs, Colonel McLean. It's up next.
Hey, Scott, can you give me a thumbs up so I know that I'm transmitting here? Fantastic. A little bit of background for those that don't know, the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs was created by legislation and became a department on 1 July 2019. So not very long ago at all. And the state of Senate confirmed the first Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Major General retired Will Grimsley, on March the 4th of 2020. And if you don't remember, March the 4th of 2020 was about 2 days before we shut the entire state down because of COVID-19. So we're a young department and we're still getting our feet underneath us. I became involved in this when Secretary Grimsley, who I did some business with in Baghdad in 2007, 2008, sent me one of his eloquent emails that said, "I need a chief of staff, get your ass over here, Grimsley." And so I've been here since then. We've spent the first several months as a department trying to get a grip on where South Carolina is in reference to taking care of veterans and providing veteran services. And I'm talking specifically about the state, not about the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, which does nationwide service to veterans. That research has culminated in a report that was done by us as well as a joint committee of the General Assembly and was published on the 31st of January. You can find it on the legislative website. But I'm going to highlight the three major findings that came out of that because it's going to give you some idea of where we think we're at and where we think we need to go as a state. I'll start with the first big finding, which is that as a state, we are fairly myopically focused on one aspect of veterans care, which is helping them get access to the USDVA, when where we should, people sometimes refer to as the social determinants of health. So in other words, if you just take one aspect of anything that you want to think about for veterans care, we'll take, for example, suicide prevention. You can put together any program you want to do suicide prevention, but if you don't simultaneously address homelessness, underemployment, unemployment, low income, substance abuse, mental health issues, if you don't attack on all fronts, the result that you get is very transient. It passes very quickly. So the social determinants of health is a framework that helps you look at the whole aspect of what veteran care means. In South Carolina right now, we're not aligned that way very well. We are focused not entirely, but to a large measure on making sure that our veterans get access to the federal benefits to which they are entitled. That's important. It's just not adequate. It doesn't get us to where we want to go. And if that sounds strange to you, I'll give you a couple of comparisons. Georgia, just to our west, spends on average at the state level $82 per veteran per year to provide state level support to the veterans. I'm sorry, $59 in Georgia. North Carolina, just to our north, they spend $82 a year per veteran. The great state of South Carolina spends $4 per veteran per year. That puts us 50th in the nation. That's not an error. We're last in the nation at state level support of veterans. So the first finding was we're too myopically focused and we've got to expand our aperture. And that has some second and third order consequences in terms of training people to deal with larger issues, resourcing people to deal with larger issues. For those that have been in South Carolina for a long time, you may well already be aware that the level of service that you get as a veteran at one of our state level or one of our county offices is almost entirely dependent upon which county office you happen to walk into, because there's a very, very wide variance, and we got to address that. The second big finding that came out of this study, which is actually good news, is that although the state may not be doing a lot on the social determinants of health, there are a tremendous number of volunteer, even some private businesses, a whole host of folks who are trying to address those issues. Their efforts are just not integrated. And we believe, and we think the General Assembly agrees as well, that one of the primary purposes of the Department of Veterans Affairs at the state level is to help integrate those. And so we're doing a number of things and initiatives to try to help everybody see each other. And essentially, what it boils down to, as simplistic as it sounds, is aligning resources with needs. But you're doing that in a coalition. And for those of you that have been to Iraq or Afghanistan, you understand the challenges of coalition warfare. You can't compel anybody to do anything. You have to convince people that it's in their best interest to do it. We think the department plays a big role in that. And the third big finding that came out of this study is that we really don't have any systems in place that would allow us to know how well we're doing. And as a result, the state, both at the General Assembly level and even within the government, the executive branch, we find ourselves driven largely by anecdotal evidence rather than statistical data. So we've started putting some things into place to allow us to have sensors that will provide hard data that we can look at. And I'll conclude simply by saying this, almost everything that I've talked about, to include this establishment of sensors that will allow us to see what's going on, requires some additional legislation from the General Assembly. And that draft legislation is over with the General Assembly, and we're looking forward to testifying to them. The Secretary is here, hopefully in the month of March, and to lay out our rationale for why this is, along with the 3 senators and the 3 members of the House who participated in the study. But South Carolina, being what South Carolina is, and I'm a South Carolinian now, perhaps will not surprise you to know that there is a counter argument to all this, which essentially boils down to, you're not the boss of me, and I will run my little thing the way that I want to run my little thing. So I think over the next 90 days, what you're going to see us focusing on is trying to convince the decision makers of the state that we can do a lot better by our veterans in South Carolina if we take the approach that we're laying out, rather than allowing it to be pockets of excellence. And I don't deny that. There are pockets of excellence in South Carolina, but if we want a consistent level of support to veterans, we're going to have to do that through the department. And we recognize our task there. We're asking for some help from the General Assembly to get aligned, mostly with authorities, a little bit with resources, but mostly with the right authorities to allow us to get after that. That's really all I have to say. And I'll pause here if anybody has any questions for us. If not, thanks for your time.
Hey, thank you, Colonel. So Kevin Schwedo's not going to be able to join us today. He is at the State House working on military license tags for us. So we'll move on down to 81st Regional Support. I think Marty is going to introduce his replacement.
Hey, yes, thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, teammates, and thanks for the late ad. As you're aware, 81st RD covers for the Army Reserve all the base operations function and military construction oversight for the Southeastern United States. Major General Shawley, our new CG, is just wrapping up her 3rd month, and she's had office calls with General Beagle, General McCarty, Mr. Schwedo, and Miss Jennifer Harding, and aspires to get back on the calendar with Secretary Grimsley and Joe McLam, Dan Beatty, etc. I'll just say the 81st continues to be to look for opportunities to partner with our local partners for public-private initiatives, academic items, and scholarship, as well as nest as needed with our active duty National Guard counterparts for support of COVID mitigation and DISCA. With all that said, as Scott mentioned, this will be my last quarterly meeting, as well as Tracy and I prepare to transition and move on to the next challenge. We greatly appreciate everyone's leadership and partnership and teamwork in the last few years, and we'll continue the mission. Lord willing, we'll come back down to South Carolina and rejoin you when the nest empties in the years to come. Again, as stated, the legislative liaison who will replace me, my successor, Mike Cavadius, very, very highly qualified. So he's excited to get on board. He's joining us today. He doesn't have a speaking role, but he's out there listening and watching the meeting. So thanks for joining us, Mike, from Newport News. And he'll be great. We'll get him around and make sure there's a good warm handoff as once he comes in and we begin our left seat, right seat together. And then in closing, just say thanks to all of the Chamber of Commerce there and the various military outreach organizations you have on your efforts and advocacy for veterans and veteran families. And but more importantly, for your commitment and working together to make the greater Columbia area and the entire state not only a defense community of excellence, but an awesome place to live. So thanks for all that. Subject to your questions, I'll turn it back over, Scott.
All right, thank you, Marty, and best of luck in your next assignment. We'll move to Sterling Bird, Department of Veterans Affairs.
Hey, this is David O'Mora, the Director of Columbia VA Healthcare System, reporting for Sterling today. I know usually he covers for me, so thank you for some time. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. McLam and Mr. Grimsley. Although they're newer on the scene, I know they're always ready to help out and partner with us as needed, so we appreciate that support. Fortunately, although at the state level, there's only, I think you said, Joe, $4, there's, okay, $4, so the number 4 go up. We have $730 million here at the federal level for Columbia VA Healthcare System, so that's good. The good news is that we're working together. Again, we like to believe that we're force multipliers. Just like the rest of our great community, we want to partner together in multiple ways to be successful. And one of the areas that you brought up was suicide prevention. Certainly, we are partnered together on the Governor's Challenge. That's going to be important for us to make sure that we provide safety training to our psychiatric inpatient facilities across the state. That is not something we normally do, but we're happy to do it because the more information we get out to our community, the better. But beyond that, what I don't think many people know is that across South Carolina, we are actually engaging 468 veterans right now that have identified themselves as being at risk for suicide. So that's part of our Reach Vet program. And I know whether it's working at the state level or with our DoD partners through the Midlands Veteran Engagement Council, we follow up with these veterans on a routine basis to make sure if they need help, we get it to them. We provide the support they need throughout the week. And that's been a very positive program for us. So very excited to help out any way possible. In terms of getting back to normal, I think we're all trying to do that. We can appreciate our numbers have decreased across the state, which is good for COVID. And based on our partnership with all of the private sector hospitals, we're happy to be part of the solution in terms of vaccination. We actually held recently at the Colonial Life Arena on President's Day, a mass vaccination clinic, and we actually vaccinated on that date 1,272 veterans. So that was a great event. Basically, I didn't have the bandwidth to do it here because I needed a large venue where I could provide appropriate social distancing. So I reached out to President Caslin, and with about an hour, he said, "No problem, David, we got it." So appreciate him stepping up, and he engaged his team. We also partnered with Richland EMS, DHEC, Comet, who provided transportation services, and that was a great event. So really appreciate that. And on March 13th, we'll be going back to Colonial Life Arena to hold another event again. So we're excited about that. And I expect we'll probably be vaccinating closer to 2,000 people that day, as we'll do the follow-ups for the second vaccine. Plus, we'll also do some new ones. So that's exciting for us. In terms of vaccinating across the board, we've now vaccinated 8,901 people. 7,000 of those individuals are veterans. and 2/3 of our medical staff, our team here has been vaccinated, which is great. So we can continue to dampen down COVID. In terms of some interesting things that are happening at a larger level beyond that, we were recently invited to the American Congress of Healthcare Executives meeting. That's their annual meeting. It's actually an international meeting. Of course, this year it'll be virtual. And Columbia VA was identified for 4 management innovations. So very happy that some of our best practices have been identified as worthwhile of that venue. Beyond that, we continue to find ways to partner with our community. Excited to maintain a very strong partnership with the American Red Cross. We just had a very successful blood drive, 150 potential lives saved. So that's always a good news story, and happy to be collaborating with them. We're also working right now with looking at our Blue Star Memorial. We're going to have one moved to our campus in the next 2 to 3 months. So that's a great recognition of our Blue Star mothers and partnership with our organization here. We'll be actually utilizing that memorial as the start of a new wellness walking path that'll help to surround a good portion of our campus, where we'll be helping to educate people on the VA through some targeted messaging. Beyond that, if you've driven by our VA recently, you'll see that the old quarters are down. There are 3 quarters that someone like myself would have lived in at one time. They're just beyond repair, so we worked with Historical Society to have them taken down, and they'll be replaced by 2 buildings that'll both be about 25,000 square feet each, and will maintain some of that historical flair that you saw back in the 1930s when they were erected. Building 10, which is still there, you'll see some fencing around it. That's been pushed back a little bit in terms of its completion date to bring them back to its former splendor of 1932. But we do expect that to be completed in the August timeframe, which is the exact same time that we will have our groundbreaking for our new Fisher House. So again, Fisher House is a big deal. If you guys aren't familiar with it, I know many of you are. This is basically like a very high-end Ronald McDonald House, which basically veterans' families can stay at free while their loved ones are receiving medical care here locally. So again, really appreciate the great team that's helping to raise money in the community for that very great cause. And that's about it. Those are some of the hot points for the Columbia VA healthcare system. Thanks.
And thank you for the update. USC, I think I see Jared's on.
Hey, Scott, you got us?
Yep, you're on. I can hear you.
Hey, appreciate the time. We'll be brief. I know we're pushing up against 3 o'clock. Just a few things we want to hit. This semester, we had grand opening for our Veteran Military Center of Excellence. Myself and Jody Salter are actually joining you on this call from this location. It's 3,400 square foot centralized location on campus that gives the university an opportunity to engage with our entire military affiliated student population in a way that we historically have not been able to do. And we want this location to be a hub of engagement for not only campus, but also community partners. Something I always want to hit when I get the chance, our active duty military tuition rate, we have aligned that with tuition assistance. So if you're a part-time student, you are capped at $250 per credit hour. And if you're a full-time student, you're capped at $3K per semester. So it's an incredible deal from the tuition perspective. And also Guard soldiers are included in that active duty military rate. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Workforce development, job placement, that is a top priority of ours. So we are collaborating a lot with Susan, with the Chamber, with General Grimsley and the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as some of our national partners. So, you know, we have a robust population of military and veteran students. So anything we can do to provide them with direct access to employers who have really strong veteran and military hiring initiatives, we are fully supportive of. For the first time in the university's history, we ran a statewide ad this past Sunday in about 7 different newspapers, letting the, again, veteran and military community know that we value their service, and we hope that they will consider USC if and when they choose to pursue any sort of degree. So with that, like I said, I promised I'd be brief. I am going to kick it over to Jody Salter, who's really been the driving force behind a lot of our cyber initiatives on campus, and let her share and provide an update on that front.
I'll be even more brief and just telling you about 2 cyber initiatives we have going at the university. First, we are at the very final stages of standing up our new cyber intelligence degree, which is different than cybersecurity. This degree will focus more on the operational and policy side of cyber, and is much needed. We had multiple conversations with people at West Point, U.S. Naval Academy, and Embry-Riddle to discuss where the deficits were and how this degree could help build in our community. The next thing is that we are in the early stages of standing up our cyber institute at the university. So right now we are helping to develop that cyber ecosystem within the state so that we can have a jump off point. And we are getting our assets together, all of the faculties that focus on cyber, whether it's research or education at the university, and putting that asset map together. I'm happy to answer any questions in the future regarding cyber at the university if you want to reach out to me.
Thank you, Jody. All right, we're going to look for the USO to bring us home.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year from the USO. We have always great things with all of you all being our partners, and we thank you. So I want to start with our huge win from quarter 4 of 2020 was that we made it through VBL and the holiday holdover events, with it being a 6-day adventure for getting the service members out. The USO, with the help of many of you and all 19 volunteers that we had at that time, were able to cover 6 locations for the 6 days, getting everybody out. And then we hosted 4 events, and they were all successful. We were very pleased with. So I'm very gracious to all of you and grateful to you. For last year, for the 2020 stats, our service instances were down by 17% with COVID. However, our outreach and programs that we were able to push out with between the charter flights, Victory Block Leave, and all the different COVID sites assisting with the COVID bays, quarantines, and so forth, our service instances increased by 60% with our outreach. So we did have a very, very busy 2020, even with COVID. And fortunately, with modified operations, we never had to close our Columbia Airport location. So we have been able to be here and take care of service members and veterans as they travel through the Columbia Airport. So we're really glad to say that. Same thing with our NIAC, and we've been out still at McCready. That operation has never closed during COVID. And we were able to acquire a second vehicle last year. So we've been on the road delivering our goodness throughout the state. Coming up, we have National Oreo Cookie Day. So that's always a big adventure for us with all branches here throughout the state of South Carolina. So if you're in uniform, you'll see us. We're already scheduled to come to all your installations and deliver a little bit of USO goodness this year. So we'll see many of you out there, and we look forward to it. We hosted our first ever National Eat Ice Cream for Breakfast Day last couple weeks ago, and it was such a big hit. We'll be doing those now throughout the state too. So I see a lot of smiles. Who doesn't want ice cream for breakfast, right? It was a huge hit. We're continuing to work with our partners at Cupcakes Down South and delivering cupcakes on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, along with all other kind of smiles that we can out on the ranges and throughout the state. And one of the big things that I want to let you all know is that the USO will be building a USO brick and mortar down in Charleston. We're going to be opening 1, if not 2, 1 at the end of this year and 1 at the first quarter of next year. So at the next meeting, I'll have a lot more to share on that because we're doing site visits later next week. But we're real excited that we'll be expanding not just in our vehicles, our services and goodness, but also we'll have a setup down in those areas. So we'll be looking for assistance, volunteer, in any capacity that we can find. But we're always here, and if we can help, we're always here to help. So I'll wrap it up because it's already a little after 3. But thank you for letting us say hello.
Thanks, Joni. Thanks for the update. That finishes up the programmed agenda. Just want to offer it up to Susan or Carl. If you had any comments, anything we missed?
I think we hit a lot of it. I appreciate all of you for participating today and Thanks for the good intel that we got back from each of our panelists today. So thanks for your time, Scott, and for everybody else. And Suzanne up in DC, thank you very, very much. Susan, did I miss anything? Scott, that's it for me.
All right, just a reminder, I'll plug it. The next meeting for the second quarter is May 25th, 2 o'clock. Thank you all for participating. Today's meeting is recorded. It will be accessible on the chamber website if you want to go listen to it again. And I'd like to just thank everyone for joining us and look forward to seeing you all in May.